I'm delighted to be back here. As some of you will remember, when I stood in his place exactly a year ago, I had been in the job for exactly a week, and I said that my ambition was to be a candid friend of the police, and I still intend to be candid, and I hope that we can still be friendly. There was last year a daunting schedule of major reforms on the horizon. Since then, PCCs have been elected and come into office, the College of Policing has been launched, and the National Crime Agency has been established in statute. Its full launch is next month, and we've been discussing changes to the landscape. Boy, is that a big change to the landscape. So we're entering now a new stage of police reform, and in many ways you're the leaders of that change, because now the next phase is to make changes happen on the ground, to make a tangible difference to the daily work of officers. There are some things the government can do, and we are doing to help with this, but it will require real innovation and drive to come from the operational leaders of the service. And the next stage of reform will in some ways be more radical than all the changes to structures and culture that we've seen already. Because, as I say, it's about changing the way policing is done on a daily basis to make every police officer more effective. So it's about improved tools, greater partnership working, freedom from target setting, and a fundamental change in attitudes to embrace modern ways of working. It's about the police taking charge of their profession. And I should say at the outset, one of my clear beliefs is that the police are already doing a good job. We've discussed the crime statistics. One of the things they show is that the police are performing better than ever before. Despite the budget cuts, recorded crime is down by more than 10% since 2010, and at its lowest level ever since we started the British Crime Survey. But there are always things that can be improved. And it starts with not just how you do your job, but who does the job. We've talked about direct entry. We've set out our intention to introduce these schemes. We've been consulting, and we've heard many strong views on how best to implement those schemes. And we'll be publishing the outcome of the consultation next month. But I sense from our discussion, many people see direct entry as a threat. It is an opportunity. Many see the direct backgrounds of potential direct entrants as a weakness because they won't come up through the ranks and won't be able to cope with the operational nature, the points that were made in our earlier discussion. But I repeat that this diversity of experience will be a strength to the policing service. Different ways of thinking, different approaches to problems, a taste of professional life outside policing. And this change does represent an opportunity particularly to you. You're the people with the years of policing experience, which your new colleagues will be keen to draw on and will need to draw on. But you can also harness their previous experience and get the most from their fresh perspectives to work together to find new ways of finding solutions to the many challenges you face in your day-to-day job. We've all had new jobs before, and we all know the value of bringing an outsider's eyes. All of us, I'm sure, have started a new job, have asked the question, why do we do it like this? And heard the answer, well, that's the way we've always done it. And direct entrants will ask those questions, and it's always a good question to ask. I know many of you are here today. We have already innovative questioning officers. I meet them every time I visit a force. But it's still valuable to have people from outside with different experiences to ask the different questions. We all agree that diversity makes policing stronger, and diversity of experience is no different. It should be seen as another aspect of the diversity debate. But as I said, direct entry is only one piece of a much wider jigsaw when we look at diversity. There are some stark statistics which many of you will be familiar with, but sadly bear repeating. Women officers account for 27% of total police strength. At superintendent and chief super level, that proportion is only 17%. Black and minority ethnic officers account for 5% of the total workforce. Women BME officers, only 1%. And as of last March, the reported statistics then showed there were only 3 women BME officers at the rank of superintendent and none at the rank of chief superintendent. I want to see those figures increase. You, I know, want to see those figures increase. And Irene, in particular, on behalf of the Superintendents Association, has been a strong and vocal proponent of diversity. And clearly more needs to be done. It's not something that fits into one of those categories. It would be nice if we could do it. It's essential to the way we all do our jobs. Some progress has been made. The police have absolutely come a long way since the Macpherson report, and although facts about the mishandling of the investigation into Stephen Lawrence's murder continue to emerge, they're largely a legacy of practice in the past. It's an important legacy and it mustn't be covered up, but it is one that I believe the police have learned from. But there's a lot more to do. We need to ensure that in 20 years' time, there are no legacies from 2013 that continue to haunt police forces. And at this point, people have said, should we be looking at the government? Should we have new legislation or new regulations that change the diversity and equality framework? I think because it's such an urgent question, the answer lies not with government, but actually in the hands of forces themselves, because more can and should be done under the existing legislation. Police legal departments are naturally risk averse. When it comes to diversity, they shouldn't be. It's unlawful to have recruitment quotas based solely on race or gender. But recruitment quotas aren't the only way to achieve diversity. For instance, forces can, in addition to using the usual prerequisites for recruits, use specific occupational or operational requirements in recruitment and promotion exercises, such as being able to speak a particular language or have a specific knowledge of cultural issues. And this doesn't happen enough in current recruitment. Nor are positive action provisions used enough. The tipping point provisions in the 2010 Equality Act allow employers to take account of the gender or ethnicity of candidates where they are judged to be equally qualified as each other for a particular post and where the employer has identified underrepresentation in the workplace. The Met is already leading the way in this area, and rightly so. The 2011 census showed that 40% of Londoners are from BME backgrounds, but only 10% of Met officers are themselves from ethnically underrepresented groups. And the Met plan is to recruit 5,000 new constables by 2015, with an aspiration that 2,000 of them will be from BME backgrounds. This would itself deliver the visible difference that the Commissioner has said that he wants to see. And you don't have to be the Commissioner of the Met to make change happen. You're the leaders most in touch with what's happening in your area, the leaders bridging the gap between those on the street and those in an office. You know what the challenges are facing your communities. You have a say in who gets promoted. You can nurture talent along the way, wherever you find it. And you also have a voice when it comes to recruitment. How are your officers engaging with people on the street? They are your first-line recruiters, and those everyday interactions are a significant driver in attracting new joiners, or potentially repelling potential new joiners. But don't stop there. Ask questions of your recruitment departments. Ask questions about your diversity policy. Ask questions of your chief, because when it comes down to it, diversity in the workforce affects your ability to do your job, and it's everyone's responsibility. So what role does this leave for government? We'll set the strategic direction, enable officers to do their job in the best way possible, and support you in cutting crime. So you won't be surprised to hear that I certainly won't be setting you any targets on diversity, but I will carry on publishing and publicising the figures on diversity in the police. Because in the end, it's not me that's going to hold you to account, it's the public. And transparency is one of the keys to this change. So to support you and your forces in your efforts to increase diversity, the Home Office will this autumn publish authoritative guidance for police force legal departments on the use of positive action provisions in recruitment and promotion exercises. That's one action. There's more that government and partners are doing to support officers, not just on diversity, but more widely. Through the Digital Pathfinder programme, the College of Policing is highlighting the good work already happening in forces to digitise processes and make intelligent use of technology. This will provide us with an understanding of what's happening, where it's happening, and it will encourage the sharing of knowledge and innovation. And it will identify any blockers and enable us, where possible, to resolve them at a national level. I have had officers and indeed PCCs tell me that whenever I make a speech on technology, they completely agree with me. They were trying to do that, and did I know that the Home Office was blocking them? If you have tales like that in your force, do let me know, and I will do my best to unblock. I visited Hampshire recently to witness the excellent progress that they're making towards being a digital force. And Hampshire now represents a challenge for other forces, a challenge to keep up in the digital race. No force will want to be branded as the last to be using paper files, so don't let it be yours. I understand, for example, that there's been a myth circulating that the only mobile device you can use is a BlackBerry. In many instances, it's perfectly legitimate for officers to use their own mobile devices, such as for taking a photograph or using an information app. But even in the instances where a more secure device is needed, a BlackBerry isn't the only solution. CESG, the government's communication security advisors, have already issued guidance on Apple products and will soon add the wider range of the most popular mobile devices. And of course, it's not just about the devices themselves, it's about having apps that make the devices useful to officers in a range of circumstances. And with that in mind, the ICT company is creating an app store and will be working with the college to understand how to turn guidance into apps and how to quality assure the apps that developers are creating themselves. This will save your officers time, ensuring they have a range of innovative apps easily accessible, providing them with support, guidance, and information when they're out on the beat. New apps and different devices, they're both important, but they're both useless without the ability to communicate. So we will establish open information standards to make sure systems that should talk to each other do talk to each other. Over the coming months, we'll be working with forces to understand what information officers need at critical points, such as a driving licence photo when carrying out a PNC check, and we'll then work with forces to put in place the technical solutions to deliver this information. This is exactly the kind of day-to-day improvement that will make the lives of officers easier and make the forces more efficient. It's about getting the right information to the right person at the right time. Paperless forces, publishing diversity figures, common standards on digital devices. All of these are enablers. They're not edicts. No longer will officers have the government sitting on their shoulder monitoring everything they do. Instead, what we want to do is provide a range of tools to fight crime in a way that you think best, supported by evidence and best practice, not targets and matrices. You're accountable to the public, not to bureaucrats or ministers. And in this new world, superintendents have never been more important. I know that recent changes have meant many of you have taken on responsibilities that you didn't have before. And I recognise, if I didn't recognise, I know now, that this has meant increased workloads. But your position as operational leaders gives you a real opportunity to make changes on the ground that will make a difference to policing. So keep speaking out, keep making things happen, keep challenging the status quo. When officers are doing things that add no intrinsic value, be bold enough to say, we should stop doing this. Carry the torch of reform in this world of reduced budgets, because carrying that torch increases the importance of being innovative and leading change. I know I've heard Irene express fears that neighbourhood policing will be lost. a casualty of budget cuts, and it's absolutely right of her to challenge, but remaining a candid friend, I don't accept that neighbourhood policing need be compromised. I do recognise the genuine concerns about neighbourhood policing. It's critical to the way police forces are preventing and fighting crime, and it's very much the credit of the forces that so many have shown themselves able to prioritise the front line and to make savings to neighbourhood policing teams while continuing to drive down crime and maintain victim satisfaction. But HMIC says, it's not just ministers, HMIC says that effective policing is not just about numbers. Tackling local crime and antisocial behaviour should be a priority for the whole force, not just neighbourhood policing teams. Neighbourhood policing is about how you police as much as the structures within which you police. You'll all be familiar with best practice for successful neighbourhood policing, building trusting relations with communities, working with local partners, adopting problem-solving approaches, improving accessibility, and ensuring greater transparency. All of these are essential for good neighbourhood policing. It's up to you how you achieve them. And the college has recently been reviewing the most effective practice in this area, and it's already clear that there are a number of forces, Humberside, Lancashire are two of them, that are being innovative in their approaches. Humberside have thoroughly modelled demand against service, allowing them to change the resource profile of their neighbourhood teams. Lancashire have put in place a strategy to maximise their voluntary resource through specials, police support volunteers and neighbourhood watch. Both approaches have allowed forces to preserve and enhance the essential elements of neighbourhood policing, even during a time of austerity. So, following that example, we all need to ask similar questions. What other ways of working could there be that would enhance neighbourhood policing? And there are things to be learned from the private sector about innovating to deliver outcomes on a tight budget. I hope the days of the police being suspicious of the private sector are over. Examples like Avon and Somerset's joint venture with local authorities and IBM to provide support services, Cleveland Police's partnership with Steria, or Lincolnshire Police's partnership with G4S have all shown that working with the private sector can be hugely beneficial, actually improving services while making them more efficient. But it's not just about working with private sector partners, it's about taking on some of the culture, being uncompromising in the use of resources. And it doesn't need to mean working longer or even working harder. It should absolutely mean working smarter. So I believe that neighbourhood policing can and will, because it must be preserved through the ingenuity and innovation of forces in changing the way they work to deliver better outcomes in a world of constrained resources. So, without a doubt, the next stage of police reform is going to be challenging, changing ingrained systems and ways of doing things always is. But I think we can be upbeat about the challenge, not least because these are not going to be imposed by me or the Home Secretary or government. They're going to be driven through by you trying to do your jobs even better in the future than you have in the past. And I know in my year doing this job what a can-do organisation the police are. You'll be leading the changes, and therefore I've got every confidence that what is already a brilliant service to the public of England and Wales will continue to get even better in the future. Thank you very much.